On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, we're going to grade your fake trades. Everything that you thought about the deadline, we're going to recap it on today's show.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel, we're diving into your fake trades. We love grading your fake trades, discussing who the Thunder should be targeting, and your thoughts on the deadline. Again, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Check it out today because FanDuel makes every moment more. Right now, new customers get $140, $150 in bonus bets guaranteed if you place a $5 bet by visiting FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And folks, you've been waiting for this one for a while. It's grading your fake trades. And I think that the NBA trade deadline is, of course, a milestone within this season. There are these checkpoints in the NBA year where transactions really start to ratchet up. And, there's a large chunk of the NBA community that enjoys the transactional team building at times more than what's happening on the floor. And so obviously this is going to get people's imaginations going, and it's going to get people excited about what the Thunder could do, especially with the fact that after tonight against Portland, given the Timberwolves loss to Charlotte, after tonight against Portland, the Thunder could be the top seed in the West. So obviously we're going to dive into and grade your trades. Let's start with T, who has a lot of trades. The first two, let's start with James Wiseman for Aleksej Pokusevski, Trey Mann, and 2 second-round picks. Look, I'm not in love with James Wiseman in Oklahoma City. I don't, particularly think that he'll fit with the Thunder. However, a former highly touted prospect, and all you're giving up is a couple seconds out of like 20 that you have that are tradable, and then 2 guys not in the rotation. One, for sure you're not bringing back next year. The other, it'll be very hard with the roster crunch and the influx of draft picks to keep Trey Mann around for next year. So it's hard to grade this anything below a C, but it's also hard to grade this any better than a B. So it's somewhere in that range. I would say it's a C+ because, taking a shot on James Wiseman, just if nothing else, to have that curveball to throw, I think is a fine idea, right? Because, even if he just sits there and doesn't play the way that Pokusevski hasn't played and Trey Mann hasn't played, that's fine. Like, you didn't give up anything that you would regret or that you would miss if you end up not getting any value out of him. The upside would be you give up very little and you get an expiring big man who gives a different look than what the roster currently has. Like, the roster does not have a player who plays the exact way that James Wiseman does. So, it would be a very, very cheap option. The second option of these two is Isaiah Stewart, who I'm not sure that the Pistons would be eager to trade, but I think that they'd be open to it if the right, price was hit. This trade that you've crafted with for Isaiah Stewart is Poku, Trey Mann, 2 first-round picks, and a second-round pick. Now, one of those first-round picks that you put in this trade was the Clippers pick this year in 2024, a 25 first-round pick, and a 25 second-round pick. 2 first-round picks for Isaiah Stewart is significant. I will say I don't personally value the 2024 draft as closely for the Thunder in the sense of they would still have, a pick in this draft. They would not be out of the 24 draft. And, you'd be hoping that you'd have that Jazz pick somewhere in the money zone of 12, 14, 15, somewhere in that range, depending on where the Jazz level out. So you'd still have something to work with. But, in this draft, I don't see there being a ton of just Obviously, there's no top in talents technically. Like a lot of them, I love Olivier Sarr, his brother Alex Sarr. I love Cody Williams. I think that those two are really excellent players. Those guys are going to be gone within the first few picks of the draft. I personally would have them gone by pick 4. So those aren't really in the equation necessarily for Oklahoma City. Everyone else, you're hoping can develop potentially into a rotational piece where the Thunder could be slotted, especially where this Clippers pick would be at. So you're giving away this Clippers pick that I don't think has an incredible value for this Thunder team specifically, where it could have more value for Detroit or for Charlotte if you wanted to make a trade for one of Charlotte's players as they start to retool their roster. It has more value for them because they can draft someone later in the 24 draft and give them the runway and developmental time that maybe it'll be tough to do and continue to do in Oklahoma City. However, the Thunder do have a fantastic G League program and a fantastic developmental track record there, to where it's not as though drafting multiple players in this draft would be a bad thing. It'd be a fine thing for the Thunder to do. But it's just like 2 first-round picks for Isaiah Stewart seems like a lot. One of those first-round picks, though, is in the invaluable 24 draft. I still wouldn't do this just because it feels like it's a move for the sake of making a move. And he's more of a long-term contract. You kind of lock yourself more into Isaiah Stewart than you do James Wiseman, but he's a much better player. But if the Thunder did this, I wouldn't have any gripes with it. It would just be interesting to see them trade 2 first-round picks for Stewart. Moving on to Mike's fake trade. Mike has one of my favorite targets. So each time that you guys register one of my favorite targets, I'll be sure to flag it down. Gordon Hayward is one of the guys that I would love to see in Oklahoma City. And this trade is Davis Bertans, Aleksej Pokusevski, Trey Mann, and for Gordon Hayward. If the Hornets are just looking to get off of his money, as an expiring contract, and if they potentially might have to buy him out, the reason the Thunder would do this is, again, Bertans, Poku, Trey Mann, not a part of the rotation at all. You would then ensure that Gordon Hayward plays for your team. Whereas in the buyout market, that gets a little bit tricky. Now, with the new buyout market rules of how much money that they make and who would be eligible to sign them, it's a little bit more in favor of Oklahoma City this season than it would be in years past. But this just ensures that you get Gordon Hayward in Oklahoma City, who I think can be a really, really good player. And I think that the only risk for Gordon Hayward is his injury history. Well, you give up 2 guys who assuredly will not be here next year, Davis Bertans and Pokusevski, and Trey Mann, who of course can't get in the rotation for whatever reason right now for Oklahoma City. You trade those 3 guys and throw in a couple second-round picks of your 20. You've given up nothing for a low-risk, extremely high-reward player. This is someone who has the experience that people crave of just like being a more veteran leader. He's been around teams who are led by younger players, who are led by and led by younger players that went deep into the postseason. He's been around those caliber of teams to kind of see the pictures. He's been around great coaches his entire career. Spent a lot of time, of course, with Brad Stevens. Like that is something that's incredibly valuable. And then you get to his on-the-court play, which is still producing at a high level, not at a $31 million level, not at what his contract suggests that it would be. But he's also still a really, really, really good rotational player for what the Thunder would ask of him. And I think that he could fit into that team style of defense. Obviously, you're not going to put him as a point of attack defender, but I think that he could fit the role for the Thunder if he was in Oklahoma City. So I love Gordon Hayward as a trade target. I would do this trade 10 times out of 10. Match the money however you see fit. Obviously, Bertans has to be involved, but match the money. Give away a couple second-round picks and just let's ride with Gordon Hayward. Me, Michael Martin have both loved Gordon Hayward on the trade market. He's been on the Gordon Hayward train for a long time. I think that it's a perfect train to get onto. And so we'll see if you guys can continue to find out who I would love in Oklahoma City. And I'll tell you at the end if anyone was missed. I think it'll be really fun to do it that way. Now, we still have a lot of fake trades to get through, including what I think is the most high-level name that I've seen that's on the fake trade. So we'll talk about that coming up as well. But first, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is fantastic. You can go there right now to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. When you do, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose, when you place that $5 bet. So go place that bet at FanDuel.com/lockdown. And I love it because, folks, it's the perfect time for FanDuel. NBA, full swing. They have player props. They have over-unders. They have the spread. You have NHL in full swing, college basketball in full swing. And then it's down to the Final Four of the NFL. Who will go to the big game? You can go check that out and bet on that for the weekend. You also will see the Thunder take on Portland in this game. And if the Thunder can win this game as 13.5-point favorites on the front end of a back-to-back, if the Thunder can win this game, they'll be in first place of the Western Conference. So if you think that they'll blow out the Portland Trailblazers again, who have Ayton back, didn't have Ayton last time, you can just go over there to FanDuel.com right now, /lockdown, and make that bet. So check it out today at FanDuel.com/lockdown. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. We're continuing on to talk about your fake trades, grade your fake trades, and kind of dive into who the Thunder could target. You found one of my favorite targets in Gordon Hayward for this trade exercise, but we'll continue on talking about fake trades. Also, check out the Locked On Sports Today YouTube channel. It's a 24-hour streaming service, streaming channel on YouTube for free of all the local and national stories that you want to follow along with. A ton of great stuff, as always, over there. Next trade is Mikal Bridges and Nic Claxton for 2 first-round picks, both this year. That's the Utah pick and the Clippers pick. The 25 second-round pick and a 27 first-round pick from Denver. So 3 first-round picks in total. One all the way down to 27 from Denver, second-round pick, and the 2 first-round picks. Ousmane Dieng as well, Josh Giddey, and Davis Bertans. I think that Nic Claxton is somebody who a lot of the Thunder fan base really likes because he is exactly what people believe that this team needs, of a traditional big man who's a big body, who can rebound. I don't like Nic Claxton's fit in Oklahoma City. I don't like his fit next to Chet. I don't think that you should overpay the Nets. I believe what would be the price, especially for these 2 players combined, for Nic Claxton to be a bench big man. I'm just not in on Nic Claxton. That's not a player who I think fits the Thunder's identity. And, whenever you watch the Thunder's team, their identity translates over to their secondary unit. I don't think Nic Claxton can play that way. They maintain that style of play for 48 minutes. So it's not as though you could, play a certain way with the starters and then play a different way with the reserves, because the way that they stagger their rotation, that those 2 lines get shifted and blended for Oklahoma City, which is why they keep the same style for 48 minutes. And I don't think Nic Claxton could ever play in that style. So I'm not a big Nic Claxton fan. I know a lot of people are. I'm a huge Mikal Bridges fan, though. I would love the Thunder to try to get Mikal Bridges. It's going to be a pretty penny, and it's going to be a point where Brooklyn has the leverage in that case. I don't have to trade Mikal Bridges. He has not made a big stink of things at all, and they can demand as much as they want to for the next couple of seasons before it really gets into a high pressurized situation. So this trade, I'm personally going to give a D2 because you're giving up a lot for one of the players I don't think works at all for Oklahoma City and is an expiring contract. Mikal Bridges, though, I would really like to see him in Oklahoma City. So it's a good idea from Stephen, but I'm just not sold on Nic Claxton. We can continue on from Mamba Mentality, who has one of my favorite trade targets. He found another one. Dorian Finney-Smith, Dodo, has a 3-year contract right now. You have him landing in Oklahoma City for Davis Bertans and a first-round pick. I would love that trade. I would try to see if Brooklyn would consider a mountain of second-round picks, however many second-round picks they would need to total up the value of a first-round pick. I would try to do that. But even if you get a first-round pick, I would still be in on it. You could add protections to it of, lottery protected pick or whatever, and ensure that you're going to give up a later pick for Dorian Finney-Smith. But I think that Dorian Finney-Smith fits the Thunder style of play. I think that Dorian Finney-Smith plays excellent defense, with this team. Defense, at times, you can look at the way that they're measured, and at times it can be skewed against a player based on his surroundings and based on the context of who he's playing with. I think Dorian Finney-Smith, you've seen him play in the playoffs, play high-level defense in the playoffs for that Mavericks team and get them deep into the playoffs, get them to the Western Conference Finals. Like, that was largely on the back of Dorian Finney-Smith, in his defense and his shooting ability. So I think we can get back to that in Oklahoma City. I think that the gravity that the Thunder has on offense with their players like Shea and others it would result in him getting more open looks and it would result in him knocking down more open looks and just playing well in Oklahoma City overall. I've been on Dorian Finney-Smith since the summer, where people were not very fond of that idea in the summer. People have now since came around on Dodo, but I would love him in Oklahoma City. This is another one from Switzer Boys. Like, Naz Reid is the target here. I like Naz Reid. I would enjoy Naz Reid being in Oklahoma City. However, I don't think that Minnesota would give him up. So it's tough to grade this trade whenever I don't really believe one side would do it, especially, considering Oklahoma City. But 2 second-round picks and Davis Bertans for Naz Reid. I mean, yeah, this can technically work. Can technically work, contractually, can technically work in terms of like getting it approved on the trade machine. But I don't think it would be approved in the sense of like approved in actuality by the front offices. But I do like Naz Reid. NBA draft the future. There's no order this happens, but what about Giddey, Bertans' salary and a first-round pick for DeJounte Murray and Onyeka Okongwu? Look, I don't think that that's going to happen. I think that you spouted it out right there. The latest reports are saying that they only need a first-round pick and filler for Murray. But moving on from Murray, Onyeka Okongwu, one of my favorite draft targets, trade targets, I should say. He was also one of my favorite draft targets back in his draft, but one of my favorite trade targets, Onyeka Okongwu. He's another player that if you go look at the advanced metrics on his defense, and if you look at his synergy page defensively, the numbers are not good. Like, the numbers are really, really bad. And in fact, the numbers are worse than Jay Will. But I believe that a lot of that has to do with the circumstances of his perimeter defenders are not helping him out whatsoever. I think that he could look completely overhauled on the defensive end with what the Thunder can do defending as a team and defending on the perimeter to really help him and help just him overall, right? Like you look at how Chet Holmgren helps the guards, where like sometimes a guard will get beat, Chet Holmgren's there to protect the rim. It also works both ways, though. Like, if you can hold your own outside on the perimeter, that makes the life of the center easier, and that's not happening for Okongwu right now in Atlanta. So I would love Onyeka Okongwu in Oklahoma City. I don't really know what the asking price would actually be. I think that at times we can inflate it in our minds of you're trying so hard not to devalue players that you in fact overvalue players and overvalue what it would take to get them. I don't really know what the asking price would be for Onyeka Okongwu. I'm not very good at crafting fake trades. I like to talk about them, which is why I have you guys submit your fake trades so we can have a kind of a launching point conversation. But I don't, you said as well, you don't like the Murray fit exactly, which I agree with, but I do like the Onyeka Okongwu fit from NBA Draft the Future. So we'll continue on talking about trades. This is another just silly one from Bryson. I appreciate you taking the time, but Pokusevski, a first-round pick, 2 first-round picks, and Pokusevski for Scotty Barnes, not at all in the realm of possibility. This is is this a 3-team trade, or is this this is a 2-team trade? So the first one, let's talk about Kelly Olynyk. You have Kelly Olynyk, Usman Jang, Aleksej Pokusevski, and a second-round pick. So Poku and Jang and a second-round pick are going to Utah. Kelly Olynyk is coming to Oklahoma City. Kelly Olynyk is my number 1 target in the trade deadline. I think that Kelly Olynyk provides the expiring aspect of things, a stretch big option. He has, kind of some familiarity, some continuity, if you want to call it that, with Shea and Dort playing on Team Canada. And I think that he just provides you the ability to play your style of basketball, but heighten it. He is a upgrade and a better option for a bench big while still matching how the Thunder want to play basketball. Now, will Utah trade off of him? What do they want to do as they play really good basketball heading into the deadline? We'll have to wait and see. But I'd even uptick this to, Poku and 2 second-round picks, for Kelly Olynyk. I think that would be worthwhile to get Kelly Olynyk in OKC on an expiring contract. I don't think they would take Poku and Jang to get Kelly Olynyk. Then other trade is Kyle Kuzma, who is on the back end of one of my favorite targets for Oklahoma City. You'd have to get an assurance that he wants to come in and wants to play team style versus how is in Washington, where in Washington, he's kind of the guy more so than he is just a guy. And in Oklahoma City, you've got to kind of put the genie back in the bottle of having him be, just a guy that's a very good player, very complimentary player, but he's not the guy by any means or even close to the guy in Oklahoma City. This trade is a first-round pick, 2 seconds, Trey Mann and Davis Bertans for Kyle Kuzma. I would just to be clear, he put in the Sixers first-round pick for 25. I'd try to put that as the Clippers pick this year, and 2 second-round picks with Trey Mann and Davis Bertans for Kyle Kuzma. But I'd still like that. It's certainly if you get the assurance of he would be willing to play that role and kind of conform more into being a role player. So I would really like that trade for Oklahoma City. I like both of those trades for Oklahoma City. But again, I don't think it'll take Jang as well to get Kelly Olynyk at the trade market if Utah's really willing to trade them. Now, we're going to continue on with your fake trades. We have a lot more to get to. But first, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at PrizePicks. Check it out today at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. When you do, you get a minimum of 2 players, and that's how you craft your entry. You can have as many as you want to, but you have to have at least 2 players. All you got to do is sit back and put the more or less on their PrizePick projection. So if tonight, Gilgeous-Alexander, more or less than 25.5 points. And Chet Holmgren, more or less than 1.5 blocks. That's all you got to do. And so then you sit back and see, do those things come true in the game? You're not playing against other people. You're not playing against like sharks that know everything about fantasy sports and you're just kind of lost out there. It's just you versus the projected numbers, and it's a lot of fun. And I know what you're thinking. Like, you only know about the NBA enough to want to go and do PrizePicks, which is available in Oklahoma. But what if I set my entry at like 9 a.m. when I get to work? I go through my day, get home, get my family settled, whatever, and then I turn the game on, and all of a sudden one of my players isn't playing because that's how the NBA goes sometimes. PrizePicks is the only place to offer you a reboot policy. It's the only place that has a daily fantasy sports platform that has an injury assurance policy, an insurance policy to make sure that you're protected in that case. So check it out today at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA, or use the code LockedOnNBA for your first deposit match up to $100. That's your first deposit match up to $100. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Let's continue talking about your fake trades. So I really do enjoy looking at this fake trade from the perspective of both sides and kind of what, and using this as kind of a launching point of who you guys want to hear us discuss on the show. But this one from T again. Clint Capela to Oklahoma City for Davis Bertans, Aleksej Pokusevski, 2 seconds and a first. I'll be honest with you. I don't know that Clint Capela would demand a first-round pick on the trade market. Maybe it could get to a bidding scenario where it would cost that. But I think that you could swap that first-round pick out for another second or even 2 seconds and get this deal done in and of itself. Clint Capela is a player who, if the Thunder did trade for him, I'd be a little surprised that they went and got him. But I would think, okay, well, the bottom line is when you look at Clint Capela as a player, I don't believe that he necessarily. So with Clint Capela, I think that, it'd be a low risk proposition. I'm not sure that he exactly fits what Oklahoma City wants to do. I'd be a little surprised if this is who the Thunder went out and got in Clint Capela. But at the same token, it goes back to what we were discussing with James Wiseman, only to a greater extent, because you actually know Clint Capela can't play and is a good NBA player and a consistently good NBA player. There's no harm in getting Clint Capela because his money would fall off before extensions kick in for any of the young players. And if you don't, play him, so long as it doesn't take a first round pick to go get Clint Capela, just a couple or 3 second round picks, that's fine. It just gives you that threat of in a certain playoff matchups or in certain moments, you can use him as a curveball. I think that in playoffs, people always talk about who's your 8 playoff players, shorten rotation, shorten a bench, but it doesn't exactly absolve you of creativity in the playoffs. Look at what Dallas did against the Clippers. That is an example of Rick Carlisle using Boban Marjanovic for just a brief stretch in a few games to try to bust up the Clippers, and it worked. It worked for Dallas, and it ended them winning that game. So having that curveball to throw in there and just mess with the other team, if nothing else, Clint Capela can do that. On the high end, if Clint Capela can run the floor and can play the Thunder style of basketball, then you have a really, really, really big upgrade to your backup big man spot. So I would enjoy seeing it happen because there's literally no risk. Like I said, the money falls off. Money's no problem. We know he's a talented player. And you're not giving up too much for him. And I believe the Thunder wouldn't give up too much for him on the market. So I don't think that Clint Capela just himself slaps Thunder player across your face, but I do think that he can play at an NBA level very well. And what's the harm in bringing him in? Here's why I think that it's of that same vein, but even more obtainable and even more kind of just like realistic or better for the Thunder specifically. Trading Pokusevski 2 seconds for Andre Drummond, who's been one of the best backup big men in the league. He's on an expiring contract, only making $3 million. I would love the Thunder to go do this. One of my favorite players that could be available is Andre Drummond. I think you can get him for Pokusevski, who doesn't play and you're not going to bring back. And then a couple seconds. Like, this is the beauty of second-round picks. We've been talking about this every time the Thunder make a trade for a second-round pick, and people make those lame jokes and fall on those lame narratives of why are second-round picks, why go get a second-round pick. Second-round picks are the staple currency of the trade deadline. We see it time and time and time again. Sit back and observe at this deadline how many players and how many veteran players who can really help a ball club finish out the season are dealt for a second or two. When you have 20 of them, you can go make those moves and make those improvements in the margins from now until the end of time. And so that's why, I think that for the Thunder, you'd be willing to trade 2, 3, 4 second-round picks to match any number for Andre Drummond and go get him and help this team out. But there's still some more trades. There are some wacky ones that we're not going to get to, but there are also just some targets that people threw out there. Didn't want to craft a whole trade, which I don't blame you. Just wanted to throw out a name and see our thoughts. Wendall Carter Jr. was a popular one. Wendall Carter Jr. for me, it is totally dependent on the price tag. I would never be willing to kind of overpay for Wendall Carter Jr. or even pay anything of note. And I don't know that Orlando would do this. So that's why, Wendell Carter Jr., I would like to see him in Oklahoma City, just as an experiment. But that's just it. It's an experimental move to me. It's not something that I look at and want to see the Thunder just go out and for sure go get him and land him. So Wendell Carter Jr. is fine to me. It's not something I'm just dying to have. There were some three-team trades, some repeat trades. Here's the last one that we're going to end on, is Cam Johnson. Because Cam Johnson is my other favorite target. So Kelly Olynyk, Gordon Hayward, Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Kyle Kuzma I really like. And then you have this Cam Johnson trade. I also really like Tyus Jones. I didn't see anyone kind of throw out a fake trade for him in the replies, but I like Tyus Jones for this Thunder team. If the Thunder could land him, it's a guy who's had playoff experience, who fits the Thunder in terms of age and in terms of style of play, and can be a really, really good helping hand in facilitating and in creating in the postseason and playmaking in the postseason, which the Thunder I think will end up needing. So I would like Tyus Jones. I didn't really see any people talk about him in the comments, but that's my other one. And then this Cam Johnson trade. Cam Johnson, the trade is Dallas Bertans, Ousmane Dieng, 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick. He's on a 4-year contract. He's another player who I think that at times can be devalued in Brooklyn because they don't have the talent around him. They don't have the personnel the Thunder have that would help kind of maximize his skill set and maximize his talent. So I think that Cam Johnson would be great in Oklahoma City, even though you can go and find some Nets fans who are not exactly thrilled with Cam Johnson's performance this season. I think that he could get better in Oklahoma City. That's quite a bet to make if you're Oklahoma City, because he is on a 4-year contract. And in this scenario, you'd be giving up 2 first-round picks, Ousmane Dieng. But I would like to see Cam Johnson in Oklahoma City as this kind of perfect 4 next to Chet, who can help on the glass a bit if he provides some effort on the glass, and who can shoot the ball and just kind of play off of this Thunder team. So I really do think Cam Johnson could fit in Oklahoma City, and I think that he could get better in Oklahoma City than what he's shown in Brooklyn so far. But I appreciate everyone who sent in fake trades and who crafted these trades. And even if we didn't exactly read the specific ones on the show, I've read all of them and looked over all of them, and I really do enjoy them. As always, you can hit me up on Twitter at Ryland_Styles, on YouTube, at the Locked on Thunder YouTube channel. It's all free. Subscribe for free across all podcasting platforms. We're going to be back again tomorrow to recap that Portland game, and potentially the Thunder will be in first place if they can win this game against Portland. Until then, be good and be good to one another.